We're supposed to finish Book of 3 today. Obviously, we won't. We'll finish it on Thursday, unless, of course, I have to go back to my dentist and get my mouth all screwed up, which is very likely because it's still not right. So let's start with the author's note on pages Roman numeral 8 and 9. We'll get through quite a bit. I mean, we might actually finish today, but I doubt it. Definitely have started the next book, which is the Black Cauldron, I believe. For Thursday. So he begins with the author's note telling us about the land of Prydain. It's not a retelling of Welsh mythology or a retranslation, but it's kind of loosely based on Welsh mythology, okay? But what I want to get down to is the very last sentence on the page that says author's note, Roman numeral 8. The Chronicle of Prydain is a fantasy. In other words, duh, no kidding. Such things never happen in real life. Or do they? So what does it mean, such things never happen in real life? Does he mean simply such things as you raised a pig farmer? Or does it mean such things as you get taken off to a mysterious castle that has a witch in charge of it and it implodes upon itself because you remove a sword from it, that kind of stuff? Or do they? Most of us are called on to perform tasks far beyond what we can do. Our capabilities seldom match our aspirations and are often woefully unprepared. To this extent, we are all assistant pig keepers at heart. So, you're going to...
I was going to... I didn't know it was a rhetorical question.
Well, it wasn't really. I mean, what's your response?
I was just going to say that, what you said, that, sometimes in our lives we're called to do tasks that we're not really qualified for, but we still got to try our best and see it through because that's what our duty is.
Yeah, we hear all the time. We hear it more around June 6th of every year, but we hear all the time, pretty much throughout the year. The men who scaled the cliffs of Normandy in 1944 are part of what? The greatest generation. Okay? Why? Because those guys were 18 and 19 years old. Some of them 17 who lied. Okay? And did things that normal 17, 18, 19-year-olds wouldn't do. Or the guys who fought in, to use leave the Second World War behind, Battle of Fallujah in 2005. Okay? Or to use an even more pertinent example, all the people who showed up in Houston, driving from 20 miles away or 200 miles away, towing boats behind them, for what purpose?
To help those who were affected by the flood.
To help people they'd never seen in their lives. Okay? So, he says, the Chronicle of Prydain is a fantasy. Such things never happen. Well, such things, yeah. Is there really a horned king riding around in our world? No, there's not. Are there bad/evil people in our world? Yes. Does it sometimes require assistant pig keepers to take up the sword? Or maybe not take up a sword, but do other things to oppose them? Yes. Most of us are called on to perform tasks far beyond what we can do. What's the problem the assistant pig keeper has at the beginning of the novel, before he's given that title, assistant pig keeper?
He's not pleased with the life he's living.
He's not pleased with the life he's living. What life is he living?
Just in a small village to help out with odds and ends.
Okay.
He's supposed to be making horseshoes, but there's no horses, correct?
Yeah, and they're making horseshoes, but they don't have any horses. What's he want to be making? We'll talk about it in just a moment when we get there. He wants to make swords. Why?
Because he wants to be a hero.
He wants to be a hero. He doesn't want to slop the pigs all day long.
I just have a question. At the beginning, is he at like a village or is he at more of a manor? Because they don't have horses or anything. I don't hear of anyone aside from Paul.
It's more of a manor. Cair Dalbin is the site of a single home, and it's Cair is a Celtic word that means kind of fortress or settlement. Okay, Dalbin is the person it's named after, the old wise wizard who lives there. There you have Dalbin's hut, and it's referred to as a hut. Okay, and then you have where Call and Taryn live, and that's pretty much it. Okay, they have an orchard, they've got a garden, they've got chickens. They've got more than one pig, but Henwin's the major pig because Henwin is an oracular pig, can tell the future at times. Imagine what he does all day long. Wash the pig, feed the pig, throw scat out, throw feed out for the chickens, collect the eggs. Woo! Big, exciting life. Kind of like wake up, go to work or go to class, eat, go home, go to bed. A lot of difference? Not really. Okay? Our capabilities seldom match our aspirations because our aspirations tell us what?
What we want to become.
Okay, what we want to become. What do they also tell us? I can do anything. I'm going to call them liars. What do liars tell every child in America?
You can become anything you want.
You can become anything you want. You can do anything you set your mind to. What an utter load of BS. I can never run as fast as Usain Bolt, no matter how many times I try. I ran track in high school. I didn't do sprints. I pole vaulted. I can never pole vault like a world-class pole vaulter. Okay? If I played basketball, I would never be Michael Jordan. Never. You could put, springy shoes on me and ain't going to happen. Okay? If I wanted to sing, I would never be a great singer. I would never be a great artist. I would never be 99 out of 100 things. Notwithstanding someone saying, oh, just try harder. You can, if you really put your mind to it. Talk about setting people up for defeat. Okay? But what does he say? Our capabilities seldom match our aspirations. Every one of you, when you get ready to write your term paper, hopefully your mentality is going to be, this is going to be a great paper, rather than, man, this is just a piece of shit and I don't really want to turn it in. Because if that's your mentality, guess what? That's what it's going to be, okay? Hopefully you're thinking, and as you're writing, oh man, this is great. Because up here, when you write your paper, it's great. It's the translation from up here. It's like learning a foreign language. Parlez-vous français? That's parlez-vous français. Do you speak French? Okay. Up here, your paper is perfect. It's when it gets translated down through these things, through this thing, you get that little phrase, lost in translation. Something doesn't quite come out. So he says, and we are often woefully unprepared. Unprepared for what? Our capabilities meeting our aspirations. Why? Because we don't try. We don't put ourselves to the test, so to speak.
Our aspirations can be unreasonable.
Our aspirations can be unreasonable. Okay? You might be born blind, and to say, well, I'm going to be the next Picasso. That's not a good example because a lot of Picasso looks like it was painted by a blind person. I'm going to be the next Rembrandt, or I'm going to be the next Michelangelo, or I'm going to be the next Da Vinci. No, not likely, because you can't, even paint by Braille. You can't, blue, splash. Doesn't work that way. But often woefully unprepared also means what? You don't know what you can do until what?
You try.
Until you do it. Until you try. Sometimes that's pretty scary. Because what don't we always have beneath us?
A safety net.
A nice little safety net to catch us. Okay? To this extent, we are all assistant pig keepers at heart. What kind of aspirations does Terran, at the beginning of this, have?
He wants to be a great warrior hero who, fights bad guys and, rescues people.
Look at the first sentence. Terran wanted to make a sword. But Call, charged with the practical side of his education, decided on horseshoes. It sort of been horseshoes all morning long. Terran's arms ached, soot blackened his face. Why do his arms ache?
Because he just kept making.
Because he's swinging a hammer, probably minimum 5-pound hammer, against a hard piece of hot steel on an anvil, and he's shaping it into a horseshoe. He's tired. He's sore. But what purpose is a horseshoe? Shoeing horse. Let's say you do have a horse. Big frickin' deal. How exciting is that? At last he dropped the hammer. Why must it be horseshoes? As if we had any horses. Lucky for the horses, Call says, looking at the horseshoe he made. Notice, that is practical. Well, it's a good thing we don't have any horses, because if we did, we wouldn't be able to shoe them because you can't make a simple horseshoe. I could do better at making a sword. I know I could. Really? How does he know he could? Because he thinks he can. And he's thinking the think method works. Because I think I can do it, I can do it. The little engine that could? BS. Just because you think you can do it doesn't mean you can all the time. Sometimes it does. Again, if the aspirations are what? Reasonable. Okay? And before Call could answer, he snatches the tongs, he flings the strip of red-hot iron to the anvil and begins hammering away. And Call says, wait, that's not how to do it. And so he keeps banging away until he picks up the bent iron and examines it. Call, not quite the blade for a hero. Which is good, right? Because Terran isn't the hero. So maybe it's a good blade for him. It's ruined. It looks like a sick snake. A sick snake. I don't know if you've ever held a snake. I used to have snakes when I was younger. What do snakes do if they're healthy? You can hold a snake, if the snake's this long, you can hold a snake here, and what the rest of the snake can do right here, it can hold itself straight, unless it's sick or dead, in which case it does what?
Falls out.
Okay? In other words, he has a limp sword. Not a good sword to have. Call. As I tried telling you, you had it all wrong. You must hold the tongs so. And so he does explain. He explains. He doesn't physically show them. This is what you do. And you can hear it. You can hear the sound of hammer striking metal when it sounds right. He puts it back in the furnace. I wish I might have my own sword, and you would teach me sword fighting. Wished. Why does he need to learn sword fighting? They don't even have a horse. Are there enemies to fight with?
No.
Why should you want to know that? We have no battles at Caerdalban. We have no horses either, but we're making horseshoes. That's for practice. And so would this be. Practice sword fighting for when I do have to. And Call's thinking, and how often do we have enemies come to Caerdalban? Because this is a no-name hole in the wall out in the middle of nowhere. He says, you must know the art. Teach me sword fighting. Call. True, I've held a sword once or twice in my day. Teach me now. See, I know most of it already. Call says, hold your hand. If you were to come against me like that, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So Dalban pokes his head out. We find out how old he is. Page 5. 379. What do we immediately know?
He's a little too old.
Okay, we're not in Kansas. Even Prydain isn't Kansas. We're not in the world as we understand it. When you have somebody who can live to be 379. Okay? What does Dalvin do most of his day? He meditates. You know, he's Yoda in Prydain. So he tells Call, you know, what are you doing? This isn't teaching the boy anything. Skip a little bit. Dalvin mentions the Horned King, middle of page 6. Taryn asks, the Horned King? He says, we'll talk later. He says, as I've explained to you before, bottom of page 6, and you have very likely forgotten, Prydain is a land of many cantrips, that is, small kingdoms, and many kings. And of course, there are war leaders who command the warriors. Terence says, yes, one high king over them all. This is all very Celtic. One high king over them all, Math, son of Mathanoi, war leader, mightiest hero in Prydain. You told me of him, Prince Gwydion. But there are other things you don't know of, because I haven't told you. One of these things, he says, is the realm of the living and not with the land of the dead, with Inuvin. That is, most of what I've told you is about the land of the living. I haven't said much to you about the land of the dead. Terence shudders. And so Dalvin tells him about King Aran, Lord of Inuvin, meaning Lord of the dead. Now this isn't like Satan, Lord of the dead. This is just a living king who rules over dead people. Okay, people that were once people living, but now they're dead. Okay? So he also talks about Inuvin as being a treasure house. Why? Because Aran has taken stuff from people far and near. So they keep talking, and Dalvin says more about Gwydion. And he says, Prydain, top of page 8, Prydain has been at peace, as much as men can be peaceful, until now. You know, how did Taryn begin the novel? What does he want to do?
Make swords.
He wants to make a sword. Okay? And we're now told there's no longer peace in the land. Sword would be a useful thing to have. What you do not know, Dalvin says, is this. It has reached my ears that a new and mighty warlord has risen. As powerful as Gwydion, some say more powerful. Man of evil for whom death is a black joy. He sports with death as you might sport with a dog. Who is he? The Horned King. Okay? His purposes I do not know. That is, what he aims, what he intends, not sure. I tell you now for your own protection. From what I saw this morning, your head is full of nonsense about feats of arms. Whatever notions you may have, I advise you to forget them immediately. There is unknown danger abroad. What's he telling all this to Taryn for?
Make sure he doesn't.
To make sure
He doesn't.
doesn't what?
Go out and do things.
To make sure he stays home. Don't go beyond our boundaries, he's saying. Why? There's danger out there. You don't know what it is. I don't even really know all of what it is. You are barely on the threshold of manhood, and I have a certain responsibility to see that you reach it, preferably with a whole skin. So you are not to leave Caer Dallben under any circumstances, not even past the orchard, not for the time being. Taryn, I think it will always be for the time being. How old is he? Okay, he says he's on the verge of manhood. How old is that? Guess.
Probably like
15.
14, 15.
14, 15? Anybody else? He's probably actually younger than that. He's probably 12 or 13 because of what we find out in the later novels. Okay? It will probably always be for the time being. And it will be vegetables and horseshoes all my life. Okay? What's so bad about vegetables and horseshoes?
They're boring.
Okay, they're boring. Yeah. But what else do vegetables give?
Food.
Life. You eat them, you live. There are worse things. Do you set yourself to be a glorious hero? Do you believe it is all flashing swords and galloping about on horses? As for being glorious, well, what about Gwydion? What's tearing me? What about Gwydion? I want to be like him. Yes, I wish I might be like him. Out of the question. It's like, sorry, kid, you don't have what it takes. But why? I know if I had the chance. Why? In some cases, we learn more by looking for the answer to a question and not finding it than we do from learning the answer itself. What? What does he mean? How do we learn more from looking for the answer to a question and not finding it?
Because you'll find answers to different questions you didn't know you had.
You develop other questions. You learn other things.
And the old question may become obsolete.
Yeah. What if the question is, how may I become great? Well, you may not learn the answer to that, but you might learn the answer to, how do I become good? Not good as in just beneath great, but good as in a good person. Okay? This is one of those cases. I could tell you why, but at the moment it would only be more confusing. In other words, I could tell you what you need to know, but it would just confuse you. So I'm not going to. What does he mean? You have to grow into it. Right? Try telling a 13-year-old what is quote-unquote good for him or her. What might you as well be talking to?
A brick wall.
This. Because what are they going to hear?
That
Teacher's voice in the old Charlie Brown cartoons. Wah, 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 wah. They're in one ear, out the other. Okay? If you grow up with any kind of sense, which you sometimes make me doubt, you will very likely reach your own conclusions. Taryn, and he adds, Dalvin adds, however, they will probably be wrong. But they'll be yours, so you'll be satisfied with them. Okay? What kind of teacher is Dalvin?
and more like experienced teacher rather than flinging knowledge at it.
What is he building up Taryn's self-esteem?
No.
Does he give a rat's you know what for his self-esteem?
No.
No. Okay. So, middle of page 10. Terrence says, he's talking with Call. Terrence says, what is the use of studying much when I'm to see nothing at all? What's the use of book learning? The book of 3 that's been mentioned, title of the book. What good is book learning if I'm not going to see? What does he mean by see? Yeah, experience real life out there. Okay? Anything at all. I think there is a destiny laid on me that I am not to know anything interesting or do anything interesting. I'm certainly not to be anything. I'm not anything even at Caradalvin. He thinks he's nothing. He thinks he's a nobody. Call. Okay, good. If that's all that troubles you, here, I'll make you something. Not, I will make you something. I will make you into something. You want to be somebody? He's saying? You want a name? You want a title? You are Taryn, assistant pig keeper. Because I'm Call, pig keeper. You're my assistant. So notice, Call, this guy who's probably about 50 or so. He's big, he's brawny. Takes pleasure, takes glory in calling himself a pig keeper. You shall help me take care of Henwin. See her trough is full, carry her water, give her a good scrubbing every other day. I do that now. All the better. It makes things that much easier. In other words, then I don't have to teach you any new skills. If you want to be something with a name attached to it, I can't think of anything closer to hand. What does he mean?
That he can't think of anything that Taryn's more qualified for than
Okay, it's possible. What else could he mean? You want to do something? Do the next thing you have to do. That's it. You want to save the world? How do you save the world? How do you end hunger? Feed somebody who's hungry. That's it. Every one of you has seen somebody, when you've been driving around, somebody standing either at an entrance to an interstate or at an exit from an interstate. And if you're thinking, I want to end world hunger, I'm going to give, I'm going to vote, blah, 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 blah. That's not going to do a lick of good. Giving the person on the side of the road a hamburger, however, is going to end hunger for a few hours. Somebody calling me. So he says, and it's not every lad who can be assistant keeper to an oracular pig. She's the only oracular pig and the most valuable. So it's not just any pig I'm asking you to assistant keep. It's a pig that tells the future.
And the only one.
And the only one. She's valuable to Dalvin. She never tells me anything. Did you think she would? With Hinwin, you must know how to ask. Okay? And they see the bees swarming. They run to the chicken coop. The chickens are acting all crazy. Okay? Dalvin says, we have to ask Hinwin. Okay? They go to Hinwin, and what happens? Well, she usually sleeps until noon. But as Taryn gets over there, she's digging under the fence and goes out. Taryn's been told not to do what?
Leave the...
Not to leave their boundaries. And he goes with the pig out into the wild. Okay? He goes and follows her. He sees from behind the brush the Horned King and troops. Okay? And is rescued by a warrior, page 16. The warrior gives him water and says, drink. You look as though I were trying to poison you. It is not thus that Gwydion, son of Dawn, deals with a wounded. Okay, what has he just said in highfalutin language? I'm Gwydion. The same Gwydion that Taryn and Dalvin were talking about. Taryn looks at him. How is Gwydion dressed?
Not at all like a prince.
Like a drifter.
Like a drifter. I mean, he's wearing stained clothes. Probably smells a little bit. And Taryn says, Gwydion, you are not Gwydion. I know of him. Notice he doesn't say I know him, because that would be just ludicrous. I know of him. He is a great war leader, a hero. He is not. And then he sees the big long sword. Oops. Taryn drops to one knee. Lord Gwydion, I did not intend insolence. It's kind of like in the Harry Potter novels, where one of the characters, I think it's Harry's uncle, says something about accidental rudeness. And Dumbledore says it's okay, accidental rudeness happens all too often. Taryn drops. I did not intend insolence. He knows he was insolent. Taryn still stared in disbelief at the simple attire and the worn, lined face. From all Dalvin had told him of this glorious hero, from all he had pictured to himself. What does that mean? From all he had pictured to himself. What did his imagination do with what Dalvin had told him of Gwydion?
Made it larger than life.
Turned him into an idol. Turned him into something to be worshipped. Okay? Taryn bit his lip. Gwydion looks at him. It's not the trappings that make the prince. Trappings. the outer accoutrements, the clothing and such, nor indeed the sword that makes the warrior. Who are you? What happened? Terence says, I saw the Horned King. I saw the Horned King himself. It was horrible, worse than Dalbin told me. Who are you? Who are you to speak of Dalbin? Now, notice what that implies. Who are you to speak of Dalbin? What does that tell us about Dalbin from Gwydion's perspective?
That he's very important.
Yeah. You know, low-life scum like you shouldn't even be using his name. Well, I am Terran of Caer Dalbin. That's his way of saying, I live with Dalbin. What are you doing so far from there? Gwydion says. Does Dalbin know you were in the forest? Is Call with you? So Gwydion knows Call. His jaw drops. Don't look surprised. I know Call and Dalbin well. They are too wise to let you wander here alone. Have you run off? Are you fleeing? Did you do something wrong? He says, no, it was the pig. Gwydion, gone? He even knows the stupid pig. I don't know where she's gone. Okay? So Gwydion talks about his mission. Terran doesn't know what it is. Gwydion talks some about the Horned King. And then he says, do you think a lone warrior and one assistant pigkeeper dare attack the Horned King and his warband? Bottom of page 18. Terran stands up, as tall as he is. 5'2", 5'3". If he's only 12 or 13, we don't know how tall he is. I would not fear him. Gwydion said, then you're a fool. He is the man most to be dreaded in all Prydain. Okay? So, Gwydion reaches down, picks up some grass leaves, and weaves them into a little form. And so he continues talking to Terran. What point or purpose does his talking to Terran serve?
Gathering information.
Okay, yes, he does that. He asks some questions of him. But look at what he says there in the middle of page 19. He says, Aran does not long abandon Anuvin. That is, Aran, the Lord of the Dead, does not abandon his kingdom of the dead. Okay? But his hand reaches everywhere. There are chieftains whose lust for power goads them like a sword point. Notice that. Chieftains whose lust for power. They want more than they have. And that urges them on. To certain of them, Aran promises wealth and dominion, playing on their greed, as a bard plays on a harp. Aran's corruption burns every human feeling from their hearts, and they become his liegemen, serving him beyond the borders of Anuvin and bound to him forever. In other words, the longer they serve him, they become less and less human. Okay? So what has he just done with Terran?
He told them that ambition could be a powerful tool to use against you.
He's teaching him. Okay? The Horned King? Aran's avowed champion. The power of Anuvin threatens Prydain. So they keep talking about the pig and stuff. And Gwydion says, top of page 20, I will not be hindered by an assistant pig keeper who seems eager to bring himself to grief. He says, on second thought, yeah, I will. If the Horned King rides toward Caer Dalbin, I cannot send you back alone, and I dare not go with you and lose a day's tracking. Terran, I won't slow you down. Let me go with you, please. Dalbin and Call will see I can do what I set out to do. Okay, does he know how to hold a sword?
No.
No. Gwydion, have I another choice? That is, I can't leave you here. Why?
Because Terran would be all alone in a
You'll get killed. Oh, he could. Would it be honorable to leave Terran there? No, it wouldn't. It would seem, Terran of Caer Dalbin, we follow the same path for a little while at least. In other words, you're not coming with me, but you can walk beside me for a little while. Okay? So, Gwydion makes camp. It had never occurred, second to last paragraph on that page, It had never occurred to him, Terran, until now that a hero would sleep on the ground. Why? He's a hero. Where does he sleep? On his bed, which always comes with him everywhere he goes. Huh. What does Terran know about being a soldier? Zip. What he knows is what he's created in his mind. Okay? So Gwydion asks him a question, page 21. How long have you been with Dalbin? Who are your kinsmen? That is, what's your daddy's name? Who's your mama? He's saying, what's your heredity? Who are your forebears? Terran. I've always lived at Caer Dalbin. I don't know who my parents were. Dalbin's never told me. I suppose, ... I don't even know who I am. And guess what? That is the theme of all 5 books. Who is Terran of Caer Dalbin? And how will he find out? Gwydion. Well, in a way, that's something we must all discover for ourselves. But doesn't Gwydion know that he's Prince Gwydion, son of Math, son of Mathanawi? Yeah, that's his name. Is his name who he is?
No. Not who he wants to be.
Yeah. Our meeting was fortunate, he says. Thanks to you, I know a little more than I did. You've spared me a wasted journey to Caer Dalbin. He says, I was going there to find out something from Henwin. Gwydion went on, is there a destiny laid on me that an assistant pig keeper should help me in my quest? Or is it perhaps the other way around? Is it my destiny that you, a low-life pig keeper, is going to help me defeat the Horned King? Or is it my destiny that I'm going to help you discover who you are? And, the whole thing about the Horned King, well, that's just kind of icing on the cake. Terran, what do you mean? Whoosh. Terran doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. Gwydion, don't know. We'll find out. So, the next day, as they go on, page 23, they're talking again. And Gwydion is telling Terran a little bit about this pig that he's assistant pig keeper for. Was Hen in Anuvan, the land of the dead? Long ago. What does long ago usually mean?
Like years and years and years.
Yeah, how long do pigs live? 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200, 300 years? This ain't no ordinary pig, in other words. Long ago is not 10 years ago. Long ago, Henwin lived among the race of men. She belonged to a farmer who had no idea at all of her powers. She might have spent her days as an ordinary pig. But Aran knew she was not ordinary. And she was captured by him. Terran, oh, poor hen. Poor little piggy. How'd she escape? She didn't. A warrior went alone into the depths of Anuvan and brought her back. Terran, boy, that was a brave deed. Yeah, they still sing about this warrior in the northern parts of the country. Call. Farmer call. Pig keeper call. Gwydion says, do you not know? Dalbin has neglected your education. It was Call. Call. Son of Callfruer. No, it can't be the same. Yep, it's him. But, Call? A hero? What's going through Terran's mind at this point?
Just a shattering of his illusions of what a hero can be.
Okay, shattering of those illusions. What else? He's a hero! Why would he want to come live at this pigsty? Literally, at this pigsty and tend a pig and grow vegetables. Why not go do hero things? slay giants, kill ogres, kill dragons. But he's so bald. Bald people can't be heroes. That's Gwydion laughs. Man, you've got curious notions about heroes. I've never known courage to be judged by the length of a man's hair. Obviously, he hasn't read about Samson and Delilah. Or for that matter, whether he has any hair at all. In other words, he's like, kid, what does hair have to do with anything? What is wrong with you? Okay? So, Gwydion goes on and says, I don't think Henwin will make towards Inuven or Spiral Castle. They keep walking. And page 25, he says we've got to go on foot because they can hear the water of the river. And he says her tracks may show somewhere along here, so we'd best move slowly and carefully. In other words, I'm going to get off my horse and I'm going to walk so I can try to find these little piggy hoof prints in the ground. Stay close beside me. If you start dashing ahead and you seem to have that tendency, in other words, what does he mean? You have that tendency to do what? To be rash, to jump forward without thinking. You will trample out any signs she might have left. Okay? So they go on and they meet up with Gurgi. Whatever Gurgi is, what does Gurgi appear to be?
A monster.
Bigfoot's son. It's a good way of putting it. Kind of dog-like, kind of monkey-like, rational to some extent. Brave, yes. Hungry, all the time. Loyal, as we will see, very. Okay. So they meet up with Gurgi, and Gurgi goes along with them. He talks about having seen the Horned King and such. And Taran says, page 29, about Gurgi, what a disgusting beast. What a nasty, vicious Gwydion. Oh, he's not bad at heart. He would love to be wicked and terrifying, though he cannot quite manage it. He feels so sorry for himself, it is hard not to be angry with him. But there is no use in doing so. Was he telling the truth about Hen? I think so. I think the Horned King has ridden to Caer Dallben. Taran, he burned it. Gwydion, no, I don't think so. Dallben is an old fox. A beetle could not creep into Caer Dallben without his knowledge. He says, no, the fire was something else. Okay. So Taran says, we've got to find Hen. No, you know what, Sherlock. So, chapter 4. They keep going on, and they run into, eventually, the Gwythaints. I want to pick up with, they go across the river. Taran doesn't know how to swim. And says, when they reach the other side, well, I thought I could learn. You know, holding on to Melangar's saddle horn. Gwydion says, you must learn to answer for your own folly. This is the bottom of 32. As for Melangar, she is wiser now than you can ever hope to become. That's not a very nice thing to say to a 12 or 13-year-old kid. My horse is smarter than you'll ever be. Wiser, sorry, not smarter. Even should you live to be a man, which seems more and more unlikely. In other words, kid, you keep making the same mistakes you're making, you're not going to live long enough to be a man. And they see the Gwythaints, these bird-like creatures that attack and kill. Okay? So we find out the birds serve Inuven, and Gwydion's like, crap. Now the Horned King knows where we are. Yes?
I was wondering, how big are these birds, considering they made a cage and carried the cage later on, and then, like supposedly they can tear a group apart.
Well, that one that they catch is a baby. It's relatively young. Okay, eagle size. I mean, 6-8 foot wingspan, maybe California condor size. Big enough to pick up Gurgi. Okay. So Taryn says, if only they hadn't seen us. Now, what kind of saying is that?
Kind of sarcastic.
Okay, I suppose it could be taken that. Give me a modern, a contemporary, what would be something similar to it? In terms of its kind of speech, not what its actual import. Well, if only I had $1 million. What's the problem? I don't. What's the problem? They did see them. Which is why Gwydion says, well, there is no use regretting what has happened. Well, if only Hurricane Harvey hadn't hit. But it did. So you can sit there and say, well, if only, till you're blue in the face. It doesn't change anything, right? One way or another, Iran would have learned of us. Okay? They keep talking, and he tells Taryn about the cauldron that Iran has and what he does with this cauldron. And if you saw the Disney Black Cauldron, which is a really bad retelling of this and the Black Cauldron story, okay, what happens? You take a person, living or dead, doesn't matter, put them in the Black Cauldron. If you forcibly put them in, when they come out, they become Iran's servants. If you take a dead body, put it in, the body comes out animated, but it has no will of its own. It just does the will of Iran. So Gwydion tells Taryn, 35, these cauldron-born are utterly without mercy or pity. Okay. Interesting, he uses those two terms. For Iran has worked still greater evil upon them. He has destroyed the remembrance of themselves as living men. They have no memory of tears or laughter, of sorrow or loving kindness. Loving kindness is a version or a translation that is used in some biblical translations of the word, okay, that is used in the Old Testament for mercy. You know, there's one of the Psalms, for his mercies endure forever. One of the translations is, for his loving kindness endures forever. So what Gwydion is telling us is that the cauldron-born have lost their humanity because they don't know mercy or pity. See, mercy and pity aren't the same thing. Pity is feeling bad for somebody else. Mercy is when that other person is under your power, under your control, maybe in a judgmental system or in a judicial system. I'm the judge, guilty. Mercy would be guilty, but no sentence. You're off. You're free. Okay? They don't find her. Her meaning Hinwin. She's disappeared. Okay? So we're going to skip a bit more. Page 37. Gurgi shows up again. And Taryn saves Gwydion and Gwydion says in response, because Taryn says, I should have known a great war leader needs no help from an assistant pig keeper. I should have known, oh, you're too great and high and mighty. You don't need my help. Okay? Gwydion says, unlike assistant pig keepers, I scorn the help of no man. And you should know better than to jump into thorn bushes without first making sure what you will find. Save your anger for a better purpose. And then he says, you did think my life was in danger. You really thought you were saving me. Taryn, if I'd only known it was that stupid, silly Gurgi. Gwydion, but you didn't. That's why it's all important. You thought you were jumping into these thorn bushes to save me. so I shall take the intention for the deed. In other words, I was never in danger, but you thought I was. You may be many other things, Taran of Caradolvin, but I see you are no coward. I offer you my thanks. And he bows to him. Why?
It's the thought that counts.
It's the thought that counts. What does this show us about Taran?
He was willing to risk his own life.
He was willing to risk his own life. Why? Gwydion's is more important. He didn't know it was Gurgi. He thought maybe it was the Horn King in the bushes. Dives in. Okay? Gurgi. And what of me? No thanks for him. No. Okay? So, they go on. And they talk while they're going on. We're going to skip a bunch. And the Cauldron-born come upon them. And Gwydion tells Taran to fly, to take his horse, ride for me. And they get captured. Page 44. Gwydion asks, are you badly hurt? Taran, no, but your wound is grave. Gwydion says, it's not the wound that pains me. I've taken worse and lived. Why did you not flee as I ordered? I knew I was powerless against the Cauldron-born, but I could have held the ground for you. In other words, I would have been captured anyways, but I could have given you time to flee. But you fought well enough. Taran, you are more than a war leader. Why do you keep the truth from me? I remember the net of grass you wove before we crossed Avern. Remember, he bent down, picked up a bunch of leaves of grass and wove a little net. He says, that wasn't just a little net of grass you threw. He says, I am what I told you. Go ahead, know a little bit of magic. No. You are an enchanter. I have certain skills, but they were not enough to protect a brave companion. So why didn't Taran leave when Gwydion gave him the opportunity to?
He wants to be a hero.
Wants to be a hero. Why else?
He didn't want to show any cowardice.
He's his war band leader. He is the war band. Taran is, that is. You don't leave your leader. You stay with them. Okay? So, they get taken off to Spiral Castle, and we meet Achran, page 46. And Gwydion tells Taran to keep his mouth shut. She's setting a trap. We know, we've come to find out, Gwydion's been there before, or Gwydion knows Achran. She kind of has the hots for him, but he doesn't reciprocate. Gwydion makes demands. She doesn't give in. So she says, I'm not going to slay you. Instead, I'm going to lock you up. She locks them up. Are they locked up in the same cell?
No.
No, they're not. Are they locked up even necessarily in adjoining cells?
No.
No, they're not. So Taran gets locked up. He does find out there is somebody else in the cell next to him. Hears voices and such. And this girl mysteriously appears in his own cell. Chapter 6. He sees the grating, page 50. And he sees this flashing object fall, a ball. And a girl says, my name is Ilanwi. Would you throw my bauble to me? That is my shining ball thing. I don't want you to think I'm a baby playing with a silly bauble, because I'm not. But it's not important, but I do like to have it. Little girl, I'm not a little girl, she says. Haven't I just been and finished telling you? Are you slow-witted? I'm so sorry for you. It's terrible to be dull and stupid. Again, kind of blunt speech, but she's essentially saying, are you retarded? And then, if you're filming this, I almost hear her going, what's your name? Okay. He tells her, She says, well, that's very lovely. Glad to meet you. I suppose you're a lord or a warrior or a war leader or a bard or a monster. Notice, you could be any one of these things. No, none of those. Well, but I'm a pig keeper. Assistant, sorry. How fascinating. Well, we've never had one of those. There's another fellow in the dungeon. Taryn, tell me of him. Is he alive? She says, yes. What conclusion does Taryn jump to? It's Prince Radiant. No, it's not him. Okay? So she explains how she can free Taryn and this other person. And she does free them. But just before then, I'm going to back up a little bit. Pages 54 and 55. We learned a little bit about her background. Okay? Taryn asks her, is Ochran your mother? Bottom of 54. Certainly not. I am Ilanwi, daughter of Angharad, daughter of Regat, daughter of... Oh, it's such a bother. My ancestors are the sea people. I am of the blood of Lear, half-speech, the sea king. Lear is an ancient Celtic king. Okay? Title of Shakespeare's play, King Lear, is based on this person, essentially. Ochran is my aunt, though sometimes I don't think she's really my aunt at all. Then why are you here? I live here. She goes, boy, it really must take a lot of explaining because you're really dense before you understand anything. My parents died, my kinsman sent me here, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So she goes on to explain, I can get you out and your friend next to you. Okay, so we go on to chapter 7. She tells Taryn, page 60, your companion is free. I took Melangar from the stable. They're hidden in the woods outside the castle. It's all done now. They're waiting for you. Did you find any weapons? No, I didn't. You can't expect me to look for everything, can you? So they go on to leave, and Taryn says, well, Ochran's going to know. In other words, you can't stay. She'll know you helped us. No, she won't. She'll think I'm still locked up. And if she doesn't know, bottom of 60, if she doesn't know I can get out, she can't know I was here. But it's very thoughtful of you to say that. In other words, well, golly gee, isn't that nice? You're thinking of somebody else, not just yourself. It shows a kind heart. That's so much more than being clever. You have a good heart, even though you're still not very bright. Okay? So they escape. They go on out. She takes something, as they do, the sword from the dead guy, and let's see where I want to pick up. In the chapter of the barrow. So we're going to skip a bunch and go on to when Taryn saves her, bottom of 72, top of 73. They're outside the castle now, and they get a distance away, they turn around, and they just see the entire castle collapse. And she says, bottom of 72, thank you for saving my life. For an assistant pig keeper, I must say you are quite courageous. It's wonderful when people surprise you that way. In other words, because you're so retarded, I didn't think you would, show that. I wonder what happened to Ochran. She'll be really furious. Taryn, well, if she's under those stones, no need to worry about that. He buckles on the sword. And she says, that's the sword the king was holding. Naturally, said Ilanwi, it should be the best one, shouldn't it? We're at the far side of the castle, what used to be the castle. Your friend is down there. They go down, and they meet who Taryn is expecting to be Gwydion. Chapter 9, Fluder Flam. You're not Gwydion. Never claimed I was. Okay. Does Fluder know Gwydion? Yes, he does. Fluder Flam, we're going to come to find out, is a king in his own right. It's a very small kingdom. It's not a very important kingdom, but it is a kingdom. Okay? He's also what?
A traveling bard.
Traveling bard.
Ish.
Close.
Failed
A failed bard, an unofficial bard, a bard in training. Right? Because he took his first bardic exams and failed. Okay? So he doesn't really yet have his license. He's got his learner's permit, so to speak. Okay? Taryn gets all bent out of shape because he thinks Eilonwy left his real companion back in the castle to die. She's like, what other real companion? He's the only one I saw. Okay? So they argue back and forth. Taryn says, I'm going to go back to the castle. There's nothing left there to go to. Gurgi shows back up. And chapter 10 rolls around. We won't get through this. We'll get through a bit of it. So 20 more minutes. The sword Dernwyn. Okay. So Taryn asks Eilonwy, page 85, let me see the blade. I mean, the hilt's all studded with jewels. They know it's an important sword. It's an expensive sword. She says no. There's a symbol of power on the scabbard. I've seen this mark before in some of Ockran's things. It always means something forbidden. She says, and there's another inscription too, in the old writing. I do wish Ockran had finished teaching it to me. In other words, she knows a little bit of it, but apparently not enough to read it. Fluter comes up, looks at it, and says, from a barrow. We should get rid of it. Don't have much confidence in things you find in barrows. Bad business having anything to do with them. In other words, when you take something from a dead man's hands, it's probably not going to be anything good coming from that. Taryn, but if it's an enchanted weapon? What's he been wanting from the first page?
The sword.
A sword.
He's got a sword.
And he has a sword now. Oh, do be quiet. Eilonwy says, Taryn, bards are supposed to understand these things. Fluter, naturally. These inscriptions are all pretty much the same. This probably says, something like, beware my wrath. Okay. Eilonwy says, no, it doesn't say anything like that. Here's what it says. Draw Dernwyn, only thou of royal blood, to rule, to strike thee, something or other, I can't read it all. It's kind of faint. So who can draw the sword from the scabbard?
Those of royal blood.
Only someone of royal blood. Okay? Taryn, let me unsheath it. There might be more on the blade. No. Why not? I told you it had a symbol of power. I'm bound by it. Okay. Taryn, when she says, besides, only someone of royal blood can draw the sword. Well, how can you tell I haven't royal blood? What's this problem? He knows nothing about his heritage. He doesn't know if he's royal blood or common blood. Bristling. I wasn't born an assistant pig keeper, right? He was just made that a few days ago. For all you know, my father might have been a king. Happens all the time in the Book of 3. Says, I've never heard of that book, but in the first place, I don't think it's good enough to be a king's son or even a king himself. Royal blood's just a way of translating. In other words, she's saying it doesn't really mean you have to be royalty. Well, if it doesn't mean you really have to be royalty, why can't anybody pull the sword out? Well, she explains. In the old writing, it didn't mean only having royal relatives. Anybody can have those. It meant, I don't know what you'd call it, something special. It seems to me if you have it, you don't need to wonder whether you have it. That is, if you have it, you know you have it. Taryn, do you know you have it? No. So, of course, said Taryn, you've made up your mind that I'm not whatever. I didn't mean to offend you. And yet all too often, people unintentionally are offensive, right? For an assistant pig keeper, I think you're quite remarkable. For an assistant pig keeper. What about for not an assistant pig keeper? Is he only remarkable as an assistant pig keeper? And we could go off into whole identity politics stuff. Because it seems to be, she's saying, For anybody else, you're not really so hot. I even think, she says, you're the nicest person I've ever met in my life. Now, we don't know how many people she's met. Maybe just him and Akron and Fluter Flam. It's just that I'm forbidden to let you have the sword, and that's that. What will you do with it? I'm going to keep it. You'll make a fine sight. A little girl carrying a sword. How old is she?
Around his age.
She's actually, if I remember right,
A year younger.
no, I think she's a year or two older than he is. Okay? She says, among my people in the olden days, the sword maidens did battle beside the men. Yeah, but it's not the olden days now. Instead of a sword, you should be carrying a doll. She squeals, raises a hand to slap at him, and Fluter Flam says, here now, stop. Okay? So they keep talking back and forth. Fluter Flam mentions he's a king, tells them where. He says that it's a vast realm, bottom of 88, and what happens?
The harp string snaps.
The harp sitting on over his shoulder goes, bing, bing, 2 strings snap. You'll come to see, whenever Fluter Flam tells a whopper, which he does all throughout all 5 novels, the strings break. So he's constantly restringing these things, or tying the strings. Okay? There go 2 more strings. So 2 have already broken. Actually, well, yeah, it was a small kingdom in the north, very dull, dreary, gave it up. Always loved barding and wandering. Okay? And that's where he tells us, what kind of bard is he?
Not a bard.
A failed bard. Okay? He says, the council were nice to me. Who's the chief bard? Taliesin. Taliesin, historical figure, chief bard of Britain, lived in the 4th, 5th century. Okay? He himself gave me this harp, he says. Said it was exactly what I needed. Why?
Probably because he kept lying.
Because the harp has a spell on it that the strings will break whenever the person who owns it tells a lie. Fluter Flam is a born liar. L-I-A-R, not L-Y-R-E. Okay? And so whenever he tells a whopper, ding, what's the purpose of the harp?
To remind him to tell the truth.
To get him to tell the truth. He says, I've noticed it happens quite often when Eilonwy says, well, your strings sure do break a lot. Bottom of 89. I'm an emotional sort of fellow and I get carried away. I might readjust the facts slightly. Purely for dramatic effect, you understand. In other words, as a bard, as a singer of tales, I need to accentuate some things. I need to emphasize. I need to elaborate. Usually what he elaborates is on his own glory, his own martial prowess, his own ability as a bard, the people he's known. Okay? Eilonwy, well, if you'd stop readjusting the facts quite as much, perhaps you wouldn't have that trouble with the harp. Tell the truth more often. Yes, I suppose, but it's hard. As a king, you get into the habit. You get into what habit?
Lying.
Lying or adjusting the facts, shading the truth a little bit. Because after all, if you're the king, who's going to say, no, Your Highness, that's not the way it was?
Not many people.
Okay? So they ask, where were you going when Akron captured you? Oh, no place in particular. Okay? So Taryn says, bottom of 90, no doubt in my mind, the Sons of Dawn must have news of the uprising before the Horn King strikes. If he triumphs, Iran will have Prydain by the throat. I've seen with my own eyes what that means. Fluter says, I understand. So you want to go looking for the warrior of dawn, or you want me to warn the warriors of dawn? He says, I shall. Start off, and Terence says, no, I shall journey to Kirdathel myself. I do not question your valor, but the danger is too great. I ask no one else to face it in my stead. In other words, this is my idea, I'll do it. Now, he's actually saying two things here. One of them is, it's my idea, I should be the one to do it. Three things, actually. The second thing is, I'm not going to ask anybody else to do something I wouldn't do. Okay, so he's showing his own courage and honor. Third thing is he's also saying, and therefore I will get the glory for doing it. Okay? Fluter, well then when are you going to seek your pig? My own quest must be given up. That is, I was supposed to find the pig. I've got to give that up and do this. If it's possible after the first task is done, I'll return to it. Until then, I serve only Gwydion. In other words, this is what Gwydion was going to do. Gwydion is now, as far as I know, dead. So I've got to fill his shoes. Not bad shoes to be filling. It was I who cost him his life. It's my fault, Taran is saying, Gwydion is dead. It's justice for me to do what I believe he would have done. And he doesn't throw this in, but I think it's implied, or to die trying. Okay? Fluter says, I don't think you're to blame for all of that. You had no way of knowing Gwydion wasn't in the dungeon. Doesn't matter. Okay? So, Taran and the others go on. They take the flight through the hills, and we're told on page 96, because he has Gwydion's horse still, very top of the page. His heart was troubled too as he watched his companions. In Caer Dallben, he had dreamed of being a hero. But dreaming, he had come to learn, was easy. Because what do you have to do when you dream?
Just think about it.
Nothing. And at Caer Dallben, no lives depended on his judgment. He longed for Gwydion's strength and guidance. Because he realizes now, it's all up to me. His own strength, he feared, was not equal to his task. Notice, the narrator doesn't tell us anything about Taran and guidance. About his own thinking about where he's going to lead them. He longed for Gwydion's strength and guidance. His own strength was not equal to the task. His own guidance? What has Eilonwy repeatedly said about what she thinks about Taran's guidance?
It's not.
It's going to lead them wrong. Okay? They see the cauldron born behind them. So they start to flee through the hills and such. And I'm going to skip a bunch. They let Gurgi and Eilonwy ride Mellingar. They nearly get captured by the wolves. Let's see here. I can skip that. And they make their way to the Hidden Valley. So skip up to chapter 13. They make their way to the Hidden Valley. They come in, they meet an old man who talks to the animals. Okay? Taran says to him, top of 114, we were lost. We'd been following our horse. And the man says, Mellingar? Taran's kind of like, how do you know who my horse is? Taran, I know who you are. You're Medwyn. Am I now? Yeah, I've been called Medwyn. How do you know that? I'm Terran of Caradalban. Gwydion, Prince of Dawn, was my companion before his death. Okay? He says, I never hoped to find you. How does Terran know of Medwin still? He says, you're quite right. You could not have found me. Only the animals know my valley. Melangar led you here. You say you're of Caradalban? He says, yes, yeah. There's some critters from Caradalban here, some visitors. Hinwin? Were you seeking her? No, she's not here. He says, we'll talk about Hinwin later. Okay? So they go down into the actual valley. They go to Medwin's house. The air down in the valley, we're told, is gentler. Okay? They see the timbers of his house, and it looks like a long ship, or is a long ship, kind of turned upside down. They see a fawn, they see bears, they see wolves, and all the animals are living in perfect peace and harmony. Terran sees Dalban's chickens. Remember, before Hinwin ran off, the chickens were acting crazy. Some were flying. Okay. So skip a few more pages and go to 118. Medwin invites them to rest, and we're told, second paragraph on that page. Medwin, Terran saw, had gardens of both flowers and vegetables behind the cottage. To his surprise, Terran found himself yearning to work with Call in his own vegetable plot. In other words, the very thing he wanted nothing to do with at the beginning of the novel is now the thing he wants the most. The weeding and hoeing he had so despised at Caradalban now seemed, as he thought of his past journey and the journey yet to come, infinitely pleasant. In other words, being a hero isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's hard work. Skip to the next page, 119. And Terran says about Gurgi to Medwin, at first I wasn't too fond of him. Now I've begun to like him, in spite of all his whining and complaining. Why does Terran like Gurgi?
He's loyal.
He's loyal.
He's helpful.
He's helpful.
He's brave.
Louder.
He's brave.
He's brave. See any parallels between Terran and Gurgi?
They're almost one and the same.
Is Terran whiny
Yep.
and complaining? Yep. But he's also brave. He's also loyal. Okay. Gurgi's not human, but he's not animal either. Medwin's going to tell us some things about Gurgi. Every living thing deserves our respect, Medwin says, be it humble or proud, ugly or beautiful. Terran, I don't know about the Gwithanes. I feel only sorrow for those unhappy creatures, Medwin says. Once, long ago, they were free as other birds. Till Iran lured them, captured them. The tortures he inflicted on the Gwithanes were shameful and unspeakable. Now they serve him out of terror. Thus would he strive to corrupt every animal in Prydain, no less than the race of men. He says, that's one of the reasons I stay here in this valley. Iran cannot harm them here. He says, and the animals come to me. Terran says, well, maybe Gurgi should stay here then. He'll be safe. Medwin, safe or safer? Yes. But you had hurt him grievously were you to turn him away now. Why? Why would it hurt Gurgi to turn him away?
Because Kirby finally feels like he belongs somewhere and that he's helpful.
Okay.
He's like homeless at this point, correct?
Yes, Gurgi also is without a home. So Terran would be essentially saying to him, I don't want you with me anymore. He would be denying Gurgi's penchant for loyalty. Okay. Medwin says, Gurgi's misfortune is that he is neither one thing nor the other at the moment. He's neither, he's going to say, human, nor is he animal. He has lost the wisdom of animals and has not gained the learning of men. Therefore, both shun him. were he to do something purposeful, it would mean much to him. Well, Taran doesn't have the wisdom of men, and he doesn't know the learning of animals. That is, he doesn't know what is naturally something good to eat out in the wilds, like animals do. But he hasn't learned wisdom, which is what he can learn from being around Gwydion and Medwin. He says, I don't think he's going to delay your journey. That is, Gurgi's not going to slow you down. And we'll stop with this. Neither refuse to give help when it is needed, nor refuse to accept it when it is offered. Okay? So when you come upon something that is in need of aid, in need of help, give it help. And when someone offers you help, don't turn it down. Okay, we'll pick up there. Yeah, we'll finish this probably in the first half hour or so. So definitely get into Black Cauldron.
The quiz on Thursday, will it be on?
Just on this. Yep.